election results are meant to surprise. They almost invariably surprise. And we should not be surprised if they surprise.
Ladki Bahin scheme, which one would imagine would have a huge impact in rural Maharashtra, which, as you've noted, like there is a difference in the voting patterns historically. So, don't you think something like this could in fact have worked? Or even, for example, the promise of a double-engine sarkar. Yeah.
He has lost elections, but he did not say after losing elections that there was manipulation.
Right.
This time they are saying it. So this is to be taken seriously. And all I'm saying is we need a election forensics.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Deshkaal with Yogendra Yadav ji. The Maharashtra election results are in, and this is what Mr. Yadav has addressed in his latest column, in which he says there are some big unanswered questions about the election results. As usual, let's dive right into it, sir. To begin with, why has the result been so puzzling for you?
I should begin by saying, Pooja, that election results are meant to surprise. They almost invariably surprise. And we should not be surprised if they surprise. I've watched elections now for 35 years. And inevitably, the whole point, I think, of popular mandate is that people's voice matters. And it may not align with my voice. That's bound to be the case. Maharashtra election has been particularly surprising for me. I traveled in Maharashtra, but not the kind of deep dive that I would like to do. So I discount my own impressions. Uh, Most of my friends believe that MVA was leading. I discount a bit of that because I think activist friends tend to be slightly over optimistic, let's say. My Those who I trust on their analysis, they said it's a kante ki takkar, it's too close to call, you can't really say. And from that, I surmise that if it's too close, then the NDA has an edge because over the years, because of their organizational strength, if the election is very close, BJP tends to move ahead. So my private conclusion was that, I wouldn't be surprised if Mahayuti wins, although there are very, very good reasons for the MVA, for the India coalition-led MVA to win, given the overall performance of the government, given the manner in which this particular government was formed, what a fraud it was. We've all probably forgotten it. So I thought there's very good reason for them to win. But I didn't see them putting in that kind of an effort to win. And my impression was that after the Lok Sabha victory, the Mahavikas Agadi, the India coalition, got 30 out of 48 seats. Although the vote margin was very small, the vote margin was only 1%. But my impression was that they took it for granted that, ye to jeet hi gaye. Because they had, in terms of assembly segment, out of 288, they had a lead in 152 or so. So my impression, traveling on the field, watching, following the election, was that Mahavikas Agadi, at least initially in the run-up to the election, from June till, let us say, October, they were somewhat complacent. And MVA was aggressive, had a game plan. They were, Mahayuti, the BJP and allies. They had a game plan. They were executing it. So my impression was that they could have made up the deficit. And if it became a close election, I was not surprised. An election that the India coalition should have easily won. I say easily won because this was an assembly election. And the trend in Maharashtra is that after the parliamentary election, BJP tends to come down a bit in the assembly election. So my impression was that, look, this is an election India coalition should have won. And they've actually made it such a close election. And in a close election, you don't know the BJP can surge ahead. That was my impression. The results were stunning. Stunning, not only because the BJP won. As I said, that did not surprise me. And I began the article by saying that did not surprise me.
Right.
Many of my friends were surprised. But then as I said, my activist friends tend to look at the world through somewhat rosy tinted glasses. I was not surprised. This was one of the possible results. But the sheer margin of the victory of Mahayuti over the MV, that is just absolutely stunning. People remember normally we look at it in terms of seats, three-fourths seats, 230 out of 288, unprecedented. But I look at it more in terms of vote share. I seats is what everyone looks at it, but anyone with technical interest in election always looks at it in terms of vote share, because sometimes the vote margin can be small, but seats difference can be huge. People are surprised, but then I say, don't be surprised. This is part of the first past the post system. Small difference of vote can lead to big difference of seats. That's not the case in Maharashtra. The difference in terms of votes is 14% points. That's huge by any measure. That's very, very large. It is electoral tsunami. Now, I have seen tsunamis as well, old enough to remember all kinds of tsunamis. My introduction to electoral politics was in 1977, which was at least in my part of the world, North India, it was a tsunami. I remember Rajiv Gandhi's success in 1985, which again was a tsunami all over the country. And we all remember Mr. Modi's success in 2019, at least in North and West India, which was again a tsunami. We know what a tsunami feels like. You step out on the street, speak to anyone, and hame is baar to uska aayega. Everyone said, tells you that. A child tells you that. A woman who has no interest in politics would tell you that. So you can feel it, you can sniff it. It's in the air. I did not see that. No one who traveled in Maharashtra saw it. But that's only one surprise. There are three other surprises built into this. The second surprise for me was that the established patterns of Maharashtra politics have suddenly been erased. Now, Maharashtra is a very large state. People who don't travel in Maharashtra don't realize how huge a state it is and how variegated it is.
Right.
Looking
Yeah.
at Konkan and looking at, if you're traveling in Gadchiroli, in Vidarbha, and if you're traveling in Raigad in Konkan, you could be in two different countries, not just in two different states. And the political patterns have been very, very different. Right till the Lok Sabha election. Even in Lok Sabha election, there are regions where Congress did well, regions where UPA and India Alliance did not do well. That's the standard politics of Maharashtra. Everyone looks at Maharashtra in terms of these six regions. There's Marathwada, there's Vidarbha, there's Western Maharashtra, there's North Maharashtra or Khandesh, and then there's Mumbai, Thane, and then there's Konkan. This time, it seems it just doesn't matter. So as if an artificial, a sort of hidden hand has come and leveled it all. There's a minor difference, but not the kind of difference Maharashtra politics is used to. Urban-rural has been a huge difference in Maharashtra. BJP and allies do very well in urban areas, and the opponents tend to make it up in rural areas. This was the case even in Lok Sabha election. There is more than 15% point difference between these two in the Lok Sabha election, urban and rural. Suddenly, everything has been leveled. So that's the second surprise. The third surprise is that all this happens within less than 6 months. 6 months ago, the same coalition had trailed by 1% point. And within actually 5 months, they lead by 14 percentage points. So there's a 15-point switch. Usually that doesn't happen, although I must say it's not unheard of. It's not unprecedented. I could, on the top of my mind, I could recall 2 or 3 instances. 1985, in Karnataka, Ramakrishna Hegde was the chief minister, lost the Lok Sabha election badly, said, okay, I'll go to people, get their mandate. And within 6 months, he came back with a thumping majority. Lost badly, came back with a thumping majority, but you can make sense of it. He said, all right, I'm leading a regional party. I've lost a Lok Sabha election. which Congress had won all over the country. He said, but I want Karnataka people to tell me whether I should remain the chief minister or not. He won. Look at Aam Aadmi Party's success after the 2014 and 2019 Lok Sabha elections. They lost both of these very badly in Delhi. But a regional party comes back and says, do you want me locally? And as you know, Aam Aadmi Party, there was almost a silent campaign to say, Upar wala vote Modi ji ko, niche wala vote Kejriwal ko. So you understand why. Even in the case of Hemant Soren's victory in Jharkhand, there is a 14-point swing between the Lok Sabha and the Vidhan Sabha election. But you can understand it's a regional party that's saying, okay, you don't like me for Delhi, but am I okay for Jharkhand? The weird thing about Maharashtra is that between these two coalitions, Mahayuti, which is led by BJP, and MVA, which is led by the Congress, it is Mahayuti which is more national because the share of seats for one party, the BJP, is much more there. And for all practical purposes, it's a BJP driven coalition.
Correct.
MVA, on the other hand, is not a Congress driven coalition, not in the local elections, not in the assembly election. It is clearly driven by Sharad Pawar and Uddhav Thackeray. So that's the fourth surprise. There's a sharp switch, and the sharp switch, the swing is in the wrong direction. By wrong, I don't mean to say politically wrong or morally wrong. It's just
historically it goes in the like it goes against historical trends, right?
Yeah. In cricket, which I watch with some interest, googly is called the wrong one because you expect it to spin this way, and it actually spins the other way.
Right.
So so it's a classic electoral googly. You expect so within 6 months there is a 15-point shift, and the shift is in the direction which is historically opposed to whatever you may have expected. All these four things are things that make me sit up and say, what's happening here? Something is weird, something is strange, something is very, very surprising. Now, I know election experts are meant to give instant gyan, and one of our instant temptation is to say, let me tell you what happened. But I think it's important once in a while to say, actually, I don't understand.
But so there are, in fact, many analyses, like the post-election analysis, which in fact do peg this, like they attribute this turnaround, this, between the Lok Sabha election and the assembly election to, for example, in fact, this is the big reason that a lot of people are saying, for the victory of the Mahayuti, which is the schemes, like the Ladki Bahin scheme, which one would imagine would have a huge impact in rural Maharashtra, which, as you've noted, like there is a difference in the voting patterns historically. So don't you think something like this could in fact have worked? Or even, for example, the promise of a double engine sarkar. Does the voter in Maharashtra suddenly wake up at this point and realize, double engine sarkar, there is some advantage to that?
Now, these things do matter, especially the Ladki Behna scheme, I think made a difference because we are speaking of a huge transfer. 2.3 crore women got 7,500 rupees each in their account. That's a very large thing. And yes, it would have helped the BJP. The only question is, what quantum do we attribute to it? Mm-hmm. And that's, in fact, one of the reasons why I was not surprised with the Mahayuti's victory is exactly this. Right. Because I saw this was happening on the street. People said they have received it or they were hoping to get it, and so on. And that the other party offers you more doesn't matter because someone is actually giving you real direct cash. So I think it's a factor. The only question is, how much do we attribute to this factor? If Ladli Behna scheme had made a huge difference, we should have expected two things. Number one, we should have expected women's turnout to go up compared to past. Number two, within the women vote, you should have expected a big difference between the MVA and the UP. The first we can estimate from official turnout figures. The second we can get from reasonably decent surveys. The first tells us that yes, women's turnout did increase. It went up by 1 percentage point compared to what it was in Lok Sabha. The difference between men and women. Overall turnout went up in Maharashtra. But if you compare men and women, the differential changed by 1 percentage point. That's important. 1% is not a small vote in a Vidhan Sabha election. And number two, if you look at did women vote more for BJP, Mahayuti, compared to MVA? We have decent data. In fact, I would encourage everyone to read the stuff that's published in Hindu. This is the Lokniti CSDS survey, which the Hindu has carried. And over the years, this has been, to my mind, the most authentic post-mortem of elections. What they do, they carry out a survey. They don't make a forecast based on that, but they use that survey to do a post-mortem, and they change. They adjust the survey figures in line with the actual outcome. Mm-hmm. So this gives you almost exactly what may happen. It's as good an estimate as you can get. Right. On the Ladki Behna difference in terms of vote share, we have an essay by Rajeshwari Deshpande, which tells us that yes, there is a difference. Yes, women voted a little more for Mahayuti than they did for MVA. But what is the difference like? Now, here is the estimate. Among men, BJP allies got 47% and MVA got 34%. So the gap is 13%. So Mahayuti has a 13% advantage among men. What is the advantage among women? The advantage is 17%. Mm-hmm. So there is a 4 percentage point difference, additional jump in the case of women, which you could roughly attribute to Ladli Behna, because in the past, BJP is not known to be doing better among women in Maharashtra. So 4%, so let's say 4 percentage point in, let us say, half the voters. Women are roughly half the voters. So it amounts to 2 percentage point. Let's say the turnout also went up 2 to 3%. How do you explain a 14% gap? So it's an all there are other explanations as well. Incidentally, the double engine sarkar is actually not a very important factor. Again, we have the CSDS survey to check this out. And because the survey took place before the elections, people were asked, they directly asked about the double engine sarkar question. And the answer clearly is not so flattering. People are actually not so convinced that double engine sarkar is a great idea and that it would make a big difference. We have an article that gets into the specifics of that. And there are other explanations as well. As I began by saying, to my mind, BJP and allies ran a better campaign. Towards the end, Sharad Pawar and Thackeray also put in enormous effort. But on balance, BJP had a game plan. They executed it. Coalitions had trouble on both sides. But on balance, I think it would be right to say that Mahayuti they ran a better campaign. They should do a little better. But that's my point. It's like, again, to go back to cricket. You're looking at an innings defeat. So a team loses by innings and 200 runs. That's the kind of defeat that we are looking at here. And someone says the field placement was not very good. The ballers, the batting order was bad. You would say, all right, yes, the field placement was terrible. Yes, the batting order was rotten. But that cannot explain an innings and 200 runs defeat. There has to be something bigger than that. That's my question.
Right. In fact, the word that you have used to describe the winner is, you in fact asked, was the winner on steroids? And that is a very important, and I would even say a loaded word. So would you like to unpack that a little bit?
Indeed, it is. I agree. So it's a race metaphor. So here
Mhm.
is a race. You are looking at two contenders who are good. You suspect that that while both of them run very well, this one is probably smart as well and could edge ahead. But as you watch the race, you find this other one moving ahead by 10 meters. Then he said, जीतना तो ठीक है ये 10 meters का गैप कैसे था? Is he on steroids? एक बार जरा चेक करके देखना कहीं वो टेस्ट में गड़बड़ तो नहीं है. Yes, to put it bluntly, I think something is fishy about the results. And this is not the first time. I've once again, just to get my position absolutely right, for the last 10 years, I have opposed EVM conspiracy theories. I have lost friends because of that, because a large number of my friends said in 2019 that Mr. Modi won because of EVM. There's a rigging. I said the rigging was here; it was not in the machines. Uh, Even after Yogi Adityanath's victory in Uttar Pradesh, many people felt that this was EVM. I had traveled and I said, no, it was not EVM. Something was happening on the ground. We missed it out. So I'm not the one to jump onto the EVM conspiracy uh, theory. But the first election that stunned me was Madhya Pradesh. The second time it was Haryana, and now it's Maharashtra. Yes, it is true that every time you lose or the party you favor lose, you cannot blame the system. And too many people have done that. Incidentally, and all of us forget that the first party to cry foul about the EVM was the BJP. In fact, Mr. GVL Narasimha Rao, the BJP MP, now earlier an independent analyst, wrote a book for which Mr. Advani wrote a preface. And the big book actually said EVMs cannot be trusted. EVMs are bogus, basically. So yes, we should not jump onto that. But as someone who's watched elections for 35 years now, I found Madhya Pradesh election results something weird about the patterns of those results. I felt the same in Haryana. And for the third time, I now find it in Maharashtra. Something is fishy. What is it? Is it EVM? I don't know because when people say EVM, what they have in mind is a software manipulation in EVMs. So no matter who you vote for, finally it will go in some other direction. I don't know if that's the case. But there are, so what I call steroid, or somewhere else in the article, I also call the X factor.
Right,
It could
yeah,
be many.
right.
It could be some good old style. The trouble is that things like EVM attract us so much, and the software manipulation attracts us so much that we forget about the mundane, ordinary things that happen on the ground. I think we've spoken about it earlier. One is voter list manipulation, which is to say you ensure that those who you suspect will not vote for you, their names are deleted. They go to the polling booth and they suddenly find, Acha, mera vote nahi, they quietly come back. You don't see this as a pattern. But once you put it all together, there is a pattern to it. Number two, there are polling booth manipulations, which is to say places where you suspect you will not get votes. There are booths where you suspect most people will vote against you. You just slow down the polling in those booths, so people are standing in queue for 2 hours, and obviously some people turn back. Or you do what was done in Uttar Pradesh, but we did not hear in Maharashtra, which is to get the police to ask everyone before they enter the booth, show me your I card. Who are you? Acha, why have you come? So basically, intimidation and such tactics take place. Then there are things that happen inside the booth, which is to say, uh, if there is only one agent left at the end of the day, the presiding officer And if the presiding officer can be persuaded, then you can put in another 30 votes at the end of the day. It'll take you about 20 minutes to do so because of the system design issues. But yes, these things can be done. So are we looking at those things? Or are we looking, and then finally, there is the issue that has been raised in Maharashtra of the possibility of the machines being changed overnight. So the machine that is counted is not the machine that actually was used for the polling. Now, I'm not saying these things happened, but all I'm saying is that steroid or X factor could contain all these. It could also contain something else, namely software manipulation. We don't yet know. All I'm saying is that there is more to it than meets the eyes. And that's something which must make us sit up. It's a very serious matter. It's a very sensitive matter. And because it's sensitive, we should not rush to conclusions. We should be very careful about weighing the evidence. But yes, Pooja, if you look around, you look to Pakistan, you look to Bangladesh, every election in Pakistan and Bangladesh is followed by the opposition saying, this is manipulated, we don't accept the results. Where the contestation is not only during the election, the real contestation is about the outcome itself. It would be a pity. One of the things that has made India stand out in all the global South democracies is that the opposition has always said, in 1977, Mrs. Gandhi finally said, thank you very much. I bow to the people's verdict and I step down. Uh, the opposition has always accepted it. Both the parties have accepted. There have been instances, I remember 2006 it was when Mamata Banerjee refused to accept the verdict. But then next time she accepted it. So on balance, we have not had this instance of the outcome not being accepted. We are close to that. Sharad Pawar says this is not outcome. Sharad Pawar has won elections. He has lost elections. He has not said this before. These are serious people. Mallikarjun Kharge has contested
Yes.
10
Ballot papers, I
elections.
think. They're calling for,
He has
yeah,
lost.
yeah,
He has lost elections, but he did not say after losing elections that there was
right,
manipulation.
right.
This time they are saying it. So this is to be taken seriously. And all I'm saying is we need a election forensics. And that's not a word I have coined.
In
It
fact, that
is
is what I was going
almost
to
a
ask you.
subfield.
I was going to
Yeah,
ask
yeah.
you. You have called for a forensic investigation. So, what would the implications of such a thing be? What
Uh,
what would it mean for the
election
process itself?
forensics. Yeah, there is, have elections been conducted in a fair way or have they not been? This has not been such a major issue in India, but all over the world, this has been a major issue. So, a subfield of electoral studies called election forensics is emerging in the last 10 years or so. What they do is that they use statistical tools that are used for banking, to detect banking fraud. They are statistical tools. They're picking those tools and they use it for elections to say, do we see uneven patterns? Do we see strange patterns? Do we see things that are unlikely to ever have happened in reality? If you recall that paper by Dr. Sabyasachi, which created such a ruckus last year, it was based on that very rigorous analysis. So what they do is that they look at the pattern of outcomes. That's one bit of statistical forensics examination. Second is to actually closely examine reports of that kind, which is to say, were voter list deletions systematic? Did voter list deletions exclude one community? Did we have problems on voting polling booths only of one particular kind, not of the other kind? And this has to be systematic because what happens is that you get to hear complaints only in those places where someone stood up, where everything was normal. You don't get to hear complaints. In a forensics analysis, you would look at all the booths. You would look at everything to say, was there something systematic that was wrong? We have never needed that in India. But I suspect this is the time we need it. We need it to be independent. We need it to be credible. I could be wrong. Let me again end by saying elections are meant to surprise. The fact that I'm surprised is not a good enough evidence. The fact that no one of my friends thought this would happen is not a good enough evidence. You know, but it is what we have seen is good enough to call for an investigation. That's all.
On that very thought-provoking note, I think we can end this episode of Deshkaal. Thank you so much for joining us again, Yogendra Yadav ji. This has been very enlightening. And viewers, please do like and subscribe our channel for more such videos. I'm sure you will find them all as engaging as you found this one. My name is Pooja Pillai, and once again, thank you for joining us.